Thanks for joining me. I just want to say, thanks for being here. I wanted to present some ideas on relationship management and keep this kind of general. Obviously, I'm in real estate, but not everybody's going to be in real estate. But there are a lot of ideas I think that we'd like to present. I'd like to present about, maintaining that. And what I like to do is always just start off with a few fun facts. Just this way, if I totally botch this, everybody will have walked away with some information that they could take with them and find interesting. So just want to start off. Did you know that 90% of the world's billionaires have become rich through real estate investments? Um, this isn't an exact number anymore either, but did you also know that 85% of real estate agents will drop out in the first 18 months? It's a big number. At age 30, 42% of millennials are homeowners, per a new report, compared to 51% of boomers at that age. So although it's going down, it's actually pretty impressive still that 42% of 30-year-olds are actually homeowners at this point. And finally, I think this one's the most interesting and really kicks off the session really well. 85% of buyers say that they will use the agent that they bought with when it comes time to sell, but only about 17% actually do. And I think that's, if you listen to that last one, that's the kicker. Like, how is there a 70% drop off? And it's relationship management. It's really the difference between the agent the salesperson that sees their client as a transaction and a paycheck rather than actually creating a relationship and a that professional relationship that will continue to bring them business over time and find other opportunities. And that's just the statistics of having a 70% drop off. So so how do you maintain that relationship? How do you stay engaged with people? Like, you don't need to be best friends with every single one of your clients. And how I can't even manage the few friends I have in real life. How am I supposed to also, have all of my regular clients stay engaged? And it's the difference between being a salesperson and being a professional advisor. And when you help someone with a sale process, and whether that's a house or whether that's a car or whether that's honestly a new suit, it's becoming the person that they want to turn to every single time they go for one of those, whatever that item is, and becoming that advisor for them. Um, so there's a lot of technology that can help us with this. I personally like to have a nice mix of tech and classic, just communications that people are not using really so much anymore. There is a lot of automation that's out there, but there is nothing that will keep you in touch and keep you in the moment, such as good old fashioned connections, such as calls, handwritten notes, believe it or not, and just the odd birthday card that will go a long way with people. So I'm going to talk a little bit first about, of course, the CRM, which is the customer relationship management software. They're updating all the time. They're constantly getting more and more sophisticated, and they're what they can do is very advanced. But it's all about the data. So the data that you put into them it's the only way that you can have quality come back out. If you don't put quality data in, you're not going to get quality back out. So just for instance, some of the information that I know I need is to have a name, an email, a phone number, an address. Those are the basics, right? And you'd be surprised at how many people in a real estate agent's database, they don't have the address for them. This is supposed to be their professional house person, and they don't have their address. And so how am I supposed to be in communication with this person and be able to advise them on their house if I don't even know where they live? But the other pieces of information can go as far as birthdays, anniversaries, and that doesn't have to be wedding anniversary. It could be anniversary of their purchase. It could be anniversary of whatever significant date that is. And then letting that CRM not automate the process of relationship and communication, but at least telling you when it's time to check in with this person and give them that congratulations, give them that card, give them that advice and continue to be that professional advisor. So um, anybody that's in sales, anybody that's that commission, based salary, is automatically, in my opinion, they're almost guilty till proven innocent, and it's a shame, but that is very much the way it is. And I was trained that way as a real estate agent when I first came in. I'm not going to say the company, but when I first came in, I was trained that way. It's very much, um, make your calls, memorize your scripts, have at least 20 conversations a day. And, I thought that's just the way it gets done. That must be the way, everybody's doing this and making money in this business. Is they're just basically what I saw it as was harassing people until they gave in. And then, of course, over time I just started to realize that that's not really how it has to happen. What you can really become is that person that they want to do business with, and not because you're just always in front of in their face. I wanted to be a consultant. That's what I really wanted to be. And I decided that that was possible, and I think it's possible for anybody in the sales position to do that. By they're offering that advice. They're the advisor role, right? So, like when someone comes to me and they say, "I want to buy a house, I want to sell a house, whatever it is," I can't take their paperwork and sign it for them. I can't say your house is sold. We accepted this offer. I can't say we're buying that house because that's what you told me you want to get, and blah 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 blah. In the end, I've taken on an advisory role, and I'm advising and consulting through the process and giving best practice and letting them make all the decisions. And in the end, what I tell people is this: I'll never talk you into a bad decision. I'll only give you enough information that you can make a great decision all on your own. And if you're the salesperson if you're really a salesperson and you really believe in like doing right by your clients, this is the type of role that I believe that anybody can do. Um, we want to be that we like I said, we want to be those advisors, and it's the only way to maintain a relationship over time is because if they just see you as there to collect money whenever they have a transaction, you're not in a relationship with them. You're just a transactional agent. So that's part of maintaining that. Sorry, 1 second here. One of the ways that I've actually done it, and I hope that this is one thing where I can say that I've been innovative in my business, is I realized that I needed reasons to call people and talk to people and engage people that wasn't always specifically about their house or my needs or anything like that. And so one of the things I decided was to take on a little bit more of a community engagement role. And I actually started last year. I launched my first fundraiser, and I actually ended up doing a sponsorship for Paws, Philadelphia Animal Wellness, and we ended up raising over $3,500 for them, and donated that. And it also gave me the reason to be able to reach out to people, to call people, to engage people, and to continue to be that person that was also building a relationship, but outside of just the real estate transaction. It was a reason to pick up the phone, to call them, to ask them for for donation, whatever it could be. And I think it really made a big impact on the client base. It gave me, it felt very good to donate to a nonprofit and to support something that I believed in myself. But also it was that reason to pick up the phone and call someone and engage them. And then of course the conversation just naturally turns towards what they're currently doing, what their situation is, and whether they need you or not. But I didn't have to pick up the phone and ask them if they know anybody that was thinking about buying or selling. I was able to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, we're actually sponsoring this event, and we'd like you to come." Of course, it was also a wine tasting, so that was a big draw for a lot of us. We actually, we had this wine vendor, and it was a great thing. And just candidly, we ended up raising enough money that my actual expense for the business was zero. Like, we actually covered our expenses flat, and we're still able to donate $3,500, and that was very, very important. And realizing like how good that was. And this year we're actually trying to do it again, except that we're actually going to be sponsoring something for Project Home. So that's actually going to be our engagement this year. It's very in the very beginning planning. stages, but once again, it's becoming the community leader, and managing our relationships with our people that way, reaching out to them through email, through phone, through mail, in order to engage them, not just about real estate, but specifically about these events. And creating that moment for us to make a connection that's outside of just a transaction. The other the other ways that we like to in the group we like to maintain our relationships with our people is by letting them understand that we are more than just transactional based. So how can we go above and beyond? How can we add value to every single one of our clients? And we do that through multiple ways. A lot of it has been through our referral sources. Um, we like to become people's real estate professionals, not just in buying and selling, but also in when their roof leaks, when they have tax questions, when they, whatever the reason is, we like to have them there. We like to have someone that's ready to help them out in one way or another, or help in whatever way we can. This has always been an important part of managing our clients' relationships and making them understand that we're going beyond a single transaction, that we are actually going to be there for them when they need us the most. And I think that's very possible in anybody's. I believe that's very possible in anybody's business, to make people understand that you're there for them beyond just the actual process of what you do for them on a daily basis. And really, I feel like I'm blowing through it a little bit here, so I apologize. But what I'm trying to say is, if you just rely 100% on technology to automate your entire system of following up with people and not making the effort to actually know people for who they are, then you're really going to get blown away by someone else who's going to do it right. You need to pick up the phone, and you need to be able to talk to people. You need to be able to communicate with them directly, and blanketing emails through newsletters and multi other types of multimedia is just going to get you left behind. No matter how good your technology is and how nice everything looks, we all get bombarded with this stuff every day. And so if we're not willing to make the effort to engage our sphere of influence in intervals that make sense, then we're going to lose people. So some of the other things that I can tell you that I do personally, I actually at least once a year give an evaluation on someone's real estate holdings. That's going to be whether they ask for it or not, like a financial statement. Same as if you had a financial advisor, I reach out to people just to provide them here the value of your house is increased or decreased or whatever it is, or stayed flat by this data right here. I also try to have, not this past year because of COVID, but I also try to engage people for that once a year at least in-person meetup, whether it's for coffee or lunch or anything else, because staying involved in the lives of the people that you're dealing with every day, and honestly provide your you know honestly the money you make every day is the only way you're ever going to get by.
I have a question for you, Chris.
Yeah, please.
How long have you been doing real estate? And first of all, what made you get into it? And how has your perspective changed over time?
First off, Angela, thank you. So I've been in real estate actually just crossing literally in 3 days. Have been in real estate for 5 years. I originally got into real estate, I'm going to just tell you honestly, on a whim. Not so much on a whim, but so much I was in another industry that was not where I wanted to be. And I was building a pretty good professional network, and I ended up joining an agent that was in my professional network as part of his team. And in the first 6 months, I actually became the team lead. And from there, I was just building a business. What I thought was, actually, I should say this. You know what I was? I was creating a job for myself. That's what I felt like I was doing. And pretty quickly, I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do either. I didn't get into it to have another job. I got into it to build something for myself and to build a business. And I ended up leaving that team after I realized that they were doing all the things that I didn't want to be. They were doing the 100 calls a day. They were doing so many communications. Couldn't leave till you had an appointment type of mentality. They were like And I didn't ever wanted to be that. I wanted to be the person who actually, got into my clients' lives and actually cared about what they do and how they work. My perspective has changed big time from the time that I originally got in, because it made sense, and it made decent money. You got to work for yourself and make your own hours, and it actually has changed to the point where now it's so much bigger. It's I have so now I have my own employees. I have my own people that work for me, and I become that person that actually is helping other people live their lives. And getting into real estate, also where you're helping people make the largest financial decisions of their life, felt like it should be more than just a sales technique. So I think the biggest problem I have with one of the stats I gave in the beginning was that 85% of real estate agents are out in the first 18 months. Um, that means there's a lot of misrepresentation out there. There's a lot of bad agents, and I just wanted to take that model where it really could be done well, and do it right. And am I the best agent out there? No. I am in the top 3% of agents out there in Philadelphia County, but there's always a room for improvement. One of the things actually also I wanted to talk about a little bit was there's a lot of technology that's coming in to try to wipe out the real estate agent. It actually has been trying for about the last, I'd say, 10 years or so. And I think that if in the relationship management aspect, if we're not adding value, if we're not engaging our people, then real estate agents, honestly, and salespeople in general, anybody who could be looked at as a middleman could find themselves pretty obsolete pretty quickly. Um, I don't know if most of you know this, but so Zillow is most of you know who Zillow is. But Zillow also owns one of the not DocuSign, but owns one of the platforms called Dotloop, where it verifies signatures and does all these signatures online. But just last week, they actually bought a program called Showing Time, which every agent almost in the country was using to schedule all of their showings online. So why would Zillow buy a program like this? And it's pretty simple. It's data mining. They are collecting as much data as they can so that eventually their algorithms will eventually start making real estate agents obsolete. We're selling our own data back to them so that they can erase us. It's great. And that 85% of agents that are out there are unfortunately what's contributing a lot to that. Yes, Gary?
So what's the one piece, and what, I think it's something that you possess, but what's the one piece that makes a real estate agent successful in relationship management?
You know, it's a great question. You're asking like what the one piece is, but the one piece is really just being it's the value add. It has to be the value add. One of the jokes I like to say is that there's more real estate agents in Philadelphia than there are people. Um, and sometimes it feels like that. I feel like you turn around and everybody's cousin has a real estate license, or everybody has a real estate license all of a sudden, because you can have a real estate license for about $1,500 in about 30 days of training, which is ridiculous. So if you're not adding value, some sort of value to your clients, and you're not actually demonstrating that you're there for their needs, then that's where most agents are going to fall into the 85% and just be erased from the market in about a year and a half. And when I say value add, that it's a generic term that a lot of people like to throw around. Value has to be valuable. So I think it comes through education. I think it comes through experience. I took it upon myself. I'll just tell you a quick story that I also flipped one. I flipped one house. I work with a lot of investor developers, but I did it myself one time because I wanted to understand the experience. Yes, I also wanted to make money, but I wanted to understand the experience. I wanted to get in. I wanted to understand how to build a home, and I wanted to understand what it means when one falls apart and what things cost to do it. And the experience actually ended up costing me. I actually took a loss on it, but I like to say that I paid that amount of money, that lost money, to get an associate's degree on how to build a house and how not to build a house. And the value that I am now today able to add by saying, I understand what this plumbing system is. I understand what this electric system is. I understand what this HVAC system is. I know how much your roof is going to cost. I know how much your brickwork is going to cost, and I know what to look out for in a wet basement is the value that I'm able to add to clients as we're doing the buy, as we're, helping people buy and sell. And so you have to be able to add value to people's lives. And if we're not able to do it, then there's no reason Zillow shouldn't wipe us out. It's pretty simple as that. We are supposed to be advisors and professionals, and as anybody is, anybody in, like I said, any sales position, we're supposed to be advisors and professionals. But if we're just the next person who happens to write our name on the paperwork, then we're no different than anybody else. Yeah, I got something from Harvey here.
How has the pandemic changed your business strategy, if at all?
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to Harvey. I'll get back to you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know there was a question. Was there?
No, yeah, it got typed in. Sorry, it's
Oh,
okay.
sorry about that.
It was asking me to expand my thoughts on how technology may or may not phase out many real estate brokers. I actually don't think real estate brokers will get specifically phased out. I think a lot of them are going to adapt. So I work for Compass, and I think someone like even our brokerage, why I came to Compass from where I used to be was they added a lot of value. One of the things that Compass does is provide some money to actually fix up your homes prepared for sale in order to get a better number. And we provide that money at 0% interest. And so that's a huge value that we can offer. I also believe though that Compass will eventually, they haven't said this directly, but I get the feeling that they will also start to become iBuyer programs. They will have the option to just directly buy your house rather than listing it and figure that out. Same as Zillow's doing, same as a lot of these other companies that are out there doing. But like I said, so if you think about technology from even just step back like 10 years, the internet has brought so much forward of real estate, right? Like everybody has access to see listings online. If you go back even further, real estate was locked down and with a lot of disinformation from real estate brokers because they had their control over the entire thing. Now the internet is providing all of this information, and people are able to make much more educated decisions as long as they're willing to put the time in to do it. Well, as soon as you start automating, I want to make this offer, and like things start pre-filling, and it's coming, it's definitely coming, and title work can get done, and you can just order everything, and it's just make it simple and simple, then there's going to be a lot of transactions that just become automatic and start to try to save people money from cutting out the real estate broker. Now, the real estate brokers that are actually adding value, I think are the ones that will maintain and be fine. I think a lot of there will be some brokerages, smaller ones that just get merged into the larger ones, but the larger ones are they'll find their other ways to add value that make them unique. And I don't see them getting completely phased out for a long time. Also, obviously the thing about real estate is it's pretty unique, right? Like every single house on a block can be 100% different from the next. And so I think having that as a factor as well makes it very difficult to be phased out, 100%. So, like if you buy a car, you buy a 2020 Ford Mustang, and then you buy, the 2020 Ford Mustang, as long as the mileage, if you put mileage and everything else the same, like that value is the same. But if you take one house versus the next, then there are a million different factors from finishes to finished basements to, it's just so much going on. And the advisory role of an agent who has experience, say in your specific market, who understands why this block sells better than this block and where the school lines cut off, there's going to be, there's going to be a lot of information that just can't be automated. Same thing as having good connections to just all the professionals that we work with, such as contractors, but also lenders, title, everything else. So so I don't see it getting, I don't see us getting wiped out 100%, but I do think a lot of people will suffer right now. There are 2 million on average. I think there's 2 million real estate agents, and the national average is actually closer to like 600.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I just think that what's going to happen is a lot of agents are going to have to build a specialty of some sort in order to make themselves different. Such as I sell, apartments, or I sell condos. something of that sort to really stick themselves out on the
So,
marketplace.
and
But
there's
I
a,
but I but I believe, and not to cut you off, technology in the future, in the next 10 years from now, like you just said, technology will, or that number 2 million, maybe it might be 10% of that in 10 years from now that are actually thriving and able to make a good living off of it.
well, it's funny you say thriving. The average realtor, actually, the national average, it makes just over $40,000 and only does about 12 transactions a year. So if you think about that 85% that I was talking about that drop out, the average is mostly coming from them. So I think you're right. I think if you're talking about 10%, if I had to guess it, it's going to be closer to like 15% based on that number, 15 to 20% of those agents. Um, the fact is the bar of entry is just a little bit too low. And if it was harder to get into, then what we would have is just more professionals that actually maintain and drive that average up. But I agree that technology is coming to take away a lot of jobs, and some of them honestly should be taken, and some of them will maintain just fine by adding value. I don't think, I will say, I don't specifically think that agents will have to have a specialty such as like I sell condos or anything else, because there's a lot of people who do that already. There's agents. I know an agent right now that says he works Fairmount. As soon as he leaves Fairmount, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. It's just pretty simple as that. And but you know what? If you sell something in Fairmount, he knows what he's doing, right? Like that's his specialty. It's the area. My specialty would probably be something along the lines of like new construction and rehab. So I work with a lot of investor and developers who, turn over homes pretty well. But I also do it. I also help them in a way that actually maintains the integrity of the neighborhood. I think that's a problem with a lot of real estate development is it's going too far outside what the neighborhood will justify. So, I mean, even from like the facade or the interior or anything else, there's cheaper materials being used and it just doesn't fit the neighborhood. And a lot of developers don't understand that their house can't just not fit the neighborhood. And that's why it's not selling. But that's the advisory role that I take on, right? That's I come in and help them actually build something that's going to sell by not just telling them like, here, use these finishes, buyers like that, but hey, this is South Philly. If you build a front vestibule when you walk in, that's a classic feature. And in a new house, people will really appreciate it. So it's just that's some of what I do. Um, Thanks for your question though. That was that was good for it to expand on. Angela, you had started to ask something and I forget what it was now.
Oh, I was just asking, like, how has the pandemic changed the real estate business?
Yeah, thank you. I kind of forgot about that was like a while ago. The pandemic did a couple things to real estate. In the actual logistics sense, we obviously have a lot more paperwork we have to sign, and we're open houses actually were put on the kibosh for a while. Now we're back in business, but only so many people through the house. Lots of waivers, lots of everything. No brokers opens; they're just not a thing anymore. Max 2 people plus an agent in a house at any point. Lots of paperwork. Honestly, it loosened up a lot. There's just pretty standard measures. From a market perspective, however, it absolutely exploded. What happened was an interesting thing with the pandemic. The pandemic at first, as you can imagine, it just complete withdrawal. No one even knew what to do. There was people caught in the middle of transactions that couldn't close. They were supposed to close in 2 weeks, and you couldn't even get a title agent to come and do your closing. They had sold their house and they had nowhere to live. It was a total mess. But as soon as things started freeing up a little bit, a couple things interesting happened. Everybody thought the real estate markets didn't come down. We're all going to be looking for new jobs. No one's going to be doing anything because no one's going to have any money. And the opposite completely happened. Interest rates obviously completely came down, bottomed out. No one was spending their money on anything else, and everybody was spending all their time at home. Well, when home isn't your most important thing and interest rates keep going down, you think to yourself, well, I have all this money I'm not spending. Let's just buy a place with a yard and this and all this other stuff. All of a sudden, first time home buyers absolutely just went nuts and bought up everything you could that was like not nailed down. Um, People sold, people that had children that were thinking, you know what, it's time, we were going to move in 2 years, let's just move this year. And they sold and they moved out to the burbs. So the burbs have seen a big explosion of sales. And the agents out in the burbs like to tell everybody how everybody's leaving the city. But that's not true. We're just doing an exchange. actually seeing, believe it or not, older people come in and buy condos because they're getting good deals on them right now. And we're seeing young people move back into the city knowing it's going to come back. And you see the families that are heading out to the burbs. So where everybody's just switching. The older people are selling to the families. They're coming into the city. They're coming out there, and it's just moving really, really fast. Now, that being said, the economy is starting to recover. Interest rates are starting to actually creep back into the threes. We're seeing 3% again. I do think that the interesting part is that a recovering economy is actually what's going to hurt the real estate industry a little bit. Rising interest rates as the economy begins to recover will eventually start topping out these max prices because they won't be affordable anymore. And eventually inventory will start building up, and that will start bringing our real estate prices back down finally. And honestly, I think it's a very healthy thing for our market to adjust back down, because otherwise we're going to experience a crash if we keep artificially being pushed up. So I'm actually looking forward to a little bit of a slowdown and then a little bit of a correction as prices start to come down. But I don't think that's going to happen for at least another year, year and a half. Real estate doesn't move like the stock market. The stock market, the Dow dropped 600 points just today, I believe. That doesn't have, prices don't drop overnight. Prices drop over 6 months. The market's always 6 months behind itself because people haven't realized the shift that happened, and people are still trying to price their houses as if it didn't happen. And so I think that's how the pandemic's kind of affected us, and how it's going to continue to affect us in the future. Actually, as like the vaccine hopefully takes hold and we start opening back up and the economy starts recovering and people start making more money, it's actually going to bring the real estate market back down a bit. But it's going to bring it back down to reality, not down to like below poverty, right? Like it's not going to crash. It's just going to come back down. Right now, it's out of this world. It's just going to come back to reality. And I think that's and like I said, that to me is a good thing. We need some recovery at this point. So for the most part, I've kind of gone through everything that I want to talk about, and probably a little bit more, as you can tell, just tangents at this point. There is one thing I wanted to put forward, though, and this was kind of in the idea of the Venture Cafe a little bit. It's a math problem that was shared with me years ago, and I never forgot it because I thought it was a great one. And I'll just go through it real fast. It normally takes some interaction, but since we don't, obviously on Zoom, it's a little bit tougher. But it's pretty straightforward. It's if I have $1 and you have $1, and I give you my $1 and you give me your $1, we each have $1. Pretty straightforward. But if I have an idea and you have an idea, and I give you my idea and you give me your idea, we each have 2 ideas. And I never forgot that. That always like stayed with me. That idea sharing is so important because you get to keep all of them, right? Everybody thinks they have a great idea and they just keep it in their pocket. And what they don't know is that the guy that they could share that with will give them a great idea right back. And then we all have better ideas. So just in the spirit of the Venture Cafe and innovation sharing, hopefully I've given something today that someone can take with them. If nothing else, like I said, the community engagement piece, I think, is probably like my biggest pride and joy of being able to give back to the community by raising money for something completely outside of like my industry, but at the same time maintaining the relationships I have through it. It's really a win-win for everybody, and it's been really, really positive for my business.
I do have one quick question for you. In your event description, it did say that you were going to talk a little bit about the trends in Philly right now.
Sure. I touched base on them a little bit, but absolutely. So the trends in Philly right now, what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about emerging markets. So we do have, and actually just this pretty timely, I myself just bought a house out in West Philly, out in Cedar Park. And one of the reasons I bought this is because it's one of our fastest appreciating markets. West Philly has actually really been growing in value hugely, and that's because of Penn. Penn has been pushing a grant program for the last few years now, allowing their employees to purchase out here with forgivable loans of $7,500. But you'd be amazed at how many people are married that both work at Penn, getting $15,000 towards their house purchase. So we have professors, we have surgeons, we have doctors, we have very high earners coming out to West Philly. And specifically in the Spruce Hill section, they can send their kids to the Penn Alexander Catchment, the school there, and get one of the better elementary schools in the entire city. And that's actually continuing to spread, though, even as you go up past Cedar Park all the way to Cobb's Creek. Places that people wouldn't have driven past, driven through in the last 5, 6 years, are now starting to see huge increases in value. So West Philly is super exciting for me to be in, but also to watch people invest in. The housing stock out here is great, and I just think it's going to continue to grow. So I definitely think it's one of those markets that you can buy into now, even as it's inflating, and watch the continued appreciation of your investment go up. Some of the other emerging markets are such as like Kensington. So Kensington's been obviously going for a little while, but it's going even higher now. I mean, like you're seeing it up to Harrogate, which if most people don't know is even further above Kensington. Norris Square Park, also just kind of still Kensington, kind of not. Absolutely seeing booms in value. And then finally, if you're even going outdoors, so everybody knows Brewery Town has been expanding for a little while now. The last few years have seen actually some stabilization. Stabilization being like commercial has been coming in. Schools still aren't there, so that's no stabilization on families. We're still very transient up in Brewery Town, but the values continue to increase while the neighborhood completely turns over to new construction and rehabs. That is continuing to expand, also going up to Strawberry Mansion, which I think is a very exciting area. Still relatively inexpensive, but it's already like tripled or quadrupled in value in just the last few years. But with the park right across the street, the 33rd Street corridor, we're going right through the zoo, literally right over Strawberry Mansion Bridge. I really think that Strawberry Mansion is going to see a huge increase over the next few years. So, it's always depending on your comfort level and what you're doing, right? If you're like, can you invest in Strawberry Mansion? Yeah, you can invest in Strawberry Mansion, do very well. Would you want to live in Strawberry Mansion right now? You'd be a little bit more brave. Let's just put it that way, But it's definitely a growth area, and definitely one to watch out for that's going to continue to turn over. And also what's interesting is we're seeing, like I said, some of the points I touched on earlier is we're having a lot of first-time home buyers that are 42% are actually age 30. I think that's great. I mean, like 30-year-olds, not 40-year-olds that are like, buying houses. I think that's a great thing. And here in the city, as our average price point continues to drive up, it's a good thing for the city in general too. Oh, one other thing is that we actually on average have about 23,000 New Yorkers that are moving into Philly every single year. That's what's happening with that is also it's
How
keeping.
many?
Sorry,
How many did you say?
about 23,000. So what that's doing is that's continuing while we have people that are leaving New York because prices have become too unaffordable. And now, if you think about it, for the last year, they've all been working from home anyway. They're coming to one of the more affordable cities, us, and keeping our real estate prices also high because they're coming down here and thinking everything's super affordable, which it kind of is compared when you look at everything. So we're also seeing people from DC, Boston. We see a lot of transient people coming into Philly. My hope for the long-term future growth of the city is going to be, unfortunately, with the city council, which I don't really believe in a lot right now. We need some more major employers in order to keep people continuing to stay here. Otherwise, as people graduate from Penn and Drexel and Temple, we need them to stay in Philly, and we don't have a great retention rate still, and that's something we need to work on as a city. So, but that's pretty much it. Like I said, sorry, just do that. So the city is definitely in growth mode. I don't see that ending anytime soon because comparatively we're just very affordable. But at the same time, it does need to take a pause because otherwise we're going to continue to build this bubble, which I already see happening. Gary.
One last question. You can actually divert if you want. I know it's a touchy subject, but what are your thoughts on tax abatement?
So the tax abatement, what their plans are, and I know it kind of got put on hold a little bit, and I'll just, for everybody who doesn't know, the tax abatement obviously it protects the improvements of a property that had been newly constructed or rehabbed. So for instance, if the house was a shell and they completely gutted out 90% of it, then 90% of the house is protected from tax increases, and they can increase that 10%. They can increase the land. When it's new construction, 100% of the house is abated, and they're only being taxed on the land for 10 years. The program that they've decided to move forward with is a decreasing tax abatement. So every year, 10% of it will drop off until it shrinks down. I actually like this program a lot. The reason I like it is because a lot of people would sell at year 8 or 9 of the tax abatement because their taxes are about to go from like $1,200 to $8,000, and the monthly payment, like they're, unfortunately, as you can tell by inflation in the market for salaries, their salaries didn't keep up with like that type of an increase. They were going to pay $600 more on their housing every month. So they would sell in the last year and then bring in the person who can now afford the increased house, blah, 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 blah. Now, the tax abatement, where a lot of people have a negative feeling for it, is look at somewhere like Point Breeze. Point Breeze is a very large neighborhood in South Philly on the west side of Broad Street, where for generations people have lived in pretty much poverty, having $20,000 and $30,000 homes, and having $20,000 and $30,000 homes, and all of a sudden now they're living next to people who are buying their houses for $500,000, $600,000, driving the assessed value of the entire neighborhood up. Their taxes used to be $500, their taxes go to $4,000, and the house right next door that's worth $500,000, their taxes are $1,000. And so this is the feeling of gentrification being driven from the city, and that's the thought on the tax abatement. And why it can be a negative for for some people in the community. It is a touchy subject. I see both the positives. I see both and the negatives of it. The positives being like it is progress. It is definitely part of the reason that so much development has happened in the city and driven the prices up and turned Philly into the kind of the metropolitan city it's becoming. At the same time, driving out the original Philadelphians to fill it full of people that are coming from outside the city to live here. It is, man. So what are my thoughts on it? My thoughts are both positive and negative. I can see the good and bad of it. I like a reduced version of it that they are at least starting with. I think the 10 years of tax abatement is straightforward. It was a lot, and the decreasing over time is definitely a step in the right direction. I think eventually we'll get it down to like 5-year abatement, maybe even less. But do I think they should ever eliminate it completely? I don't think so.
And I kind of have a follow-up question, but we're coming close to the 4:45 cutoff here for the section. Ultimately, I want I think your name is Isle. He has a message in the group chat. What do you think about North Philly? Will it start to change?
I'll try to answer as quick as I can. It depends on what side of Broad Street you're on, and then how far north you're talking about. So, like, obviously Templetown has been growing very rapidly, but I think it's also flooded now with too many investors in apartments, and they're finding a lot of vacancies. North Philly has beautiful housing stock, but they have a lot of other things they have to change before anybody starts putting money into it. Will it eventually happen? Probably. Will it be a long time from now? Yes. It's just going to have to grow out from Center City. But as North Broad Street does continue to develop commercial and other things, then yes, it obviously will become more desirable to live around those things. But, I guess the question would be more specific towards, are you talking about, do I see it change for like becoming a great neighborhood? Do I see it as a great investment opportunity? Do I, I guess this question would be specific, but if I'll just answer it on a neighborhood specific basis right now, it's got a long time if it's ever going to come back around.
Okay, and in general about right now, because of COVID, the government put a lot of money to everybody, individuals and companies, so people investing money, and you see that prices are going up. Do you think that maybe after the corona will ended, maybe prices will start to go down?
Well, actually, that was actually the exact point I made earlier. Yes, I think as a recovering economy and the interest rates start increasing, I absolutely think prices have to come back down a little bit to adjust.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, no problem. Well, I mean, so we're actually at 4:47 right now, and I managed to ramble on just long enough to get through the entire thing. So thank you all for bearing with me on this.
Thank you very much.
So anyway, but Angela, Gary, obviously, I'll talk to both of you offline at some point. Be good to catch up.
I have a question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what do you think the threshold is for interest rates to where it starts to provide a downward pressure on pricing?
It's really hard to say, but people are spoiled. I mean, I'm spoiled. I just got locked into 2.5% for 30 years. And if you told me like today I had to have like a 3.5, I would have taken a pause and had to think about that. So I'm just gonna generally say that it's probably gonna be around 3.5%, where people are like, listen, this is just getting a little like, even though 3.5 is low, right? 3.5 is traditionally, historically very low. Like
Yeah,
people are
you know,
people are still gonna take a pause, but I would say somewhere between 3.5 and 4%.
By the
Yeah.
way, do you think that's the reason why housing prices are going up?
It's 100% why. I don't even have to. It's not a think. That is why prices have gone up so much. Is because when you can lock in 2.625% for 30 years, I realized like, so a lot of people were taking 15-year loans because the interest rates were so low, and they were getting like 2.125. And then I started to realize that I would never do that. If I could take a 50-year loan, I would take it today, because there's no prepayment penalty. I would just pay more towards it and not be locked into the higher payment. And there's a lot of
So-
strategies.
yeah, the loan would be worth money
Exactly.
in essence.
So yeah, so exactly. I mean, like it's free money at that point at 2.5%. But I think the threshold is going to be somewhere like when you start hitting that between 3.5, 4%, you're going to see houses not sell as fast as they are right now. They're flying off the shelf. And you're going to see, which means inventory will begin to build, and eventually prices, once inventory builds and there's less demand, then prices have to adjust to compensate.
So Chris, real quick, as we wrap this up, how can people get in contact with you if they have further questions?
Yeah, thank you. So hopefully everybody can see the spelling of my name here, but my email is very simple. It's chris@chrishvostal.com. That's HVOSTAL. And of course, the best way is probably a text message at 267-825-1192. Willing to just talk about obviously anything we talked about today as far as relationship management, talking about further ideas, or if you have ideas about the Philly market or just want to talk in general about that, I'm always open.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.